Well, raising awareness to barriers faced by victims of violent crime throughout our state. That is the goal of a victims' rights rally being held tomorrow.
Organizers are coming together to encourage these survivors, speak life into them about their experiences as those victims speak out.
Joining us today live in our studio, Sarah Ford from the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network and also Shannon Nix from SCADVASA here to tell us more about this event. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. This is one of those issues that obviously people who have been affected care about it deeply and passionately, but we need everybody to understand the impact, and I think one way to help do that is to explain why you are involved in this work. Sarah, let's start with you.
I'm a victims' rights lawyer, so I see the worst things that victims have to experience in a courtroom. And so often people don't know what to do when something happens when they're victimized. And the time to learn about that is before you're a victim, before you have to use that information. And so we want to let people know that there are community organizers, there are resources, attorneys, community support for victims. They do not have to stand in a courtroom alone, and we want to give them the support that they need.
Yeah. That's so important. Yeah. Shannon, what about you?
Yeah, so I've worked in the field of victim services for a really long time. And at SCADVASA, we are the statewide voice for the collective prevention and awareness of domestic violence and sexual assault throughout the state of South Carolina. So for us, it's really important that people believe victims and survivors, that they have compassion and care, and to all the things Sarah spoke to, that they know their rights, that they know what's available to them and all the options.
This rally tomorrow is the third annual one that you've been doing, but this was really initiated back a couple years ago after the Bowen Turner cases. Tell me more about that case for those who may not be familiar with it, and what really ignited all of these amazing organizations across the state to come together and be a voice for victims.
I think people were very shocked by what happened, that someone who'd been accused of multiple sexual assaults was given a probationary sentence. And people just felt helpless. What do we do? How do we support these victims? How can we rally around them? And so we got together with SCADVASA and other organizations to say, we care about you, you're not alone. And bring attention to these issues, because so often people don't know what's happening in the courtroom unless they're directly affected by it. So we wanted to really give that support and engage these victims, give them a voice, because we want to hear from them and we want them to feel empowered.
Well, and the thing about it is, even if you can't change that outcome, to be able to work and make sure somebody else does not have that same outcome, there is power in that as well. Tell us about the rally tomorrow, because these are always such great events, right, to raise awareness for the community, but then, you know, you worry about the stigma, the judgment, and all the other things. It's like, well, if I go, will somebody think, you know, I have some way been victimized, which there's no shame in that, but we really want the whole community as a whole to understand the value in this and the resources and everything that you have available to connect to victims and their families.
So I think it's really important for people to be aware of what's happening. I think we have a great lineup of speakers tomorrow that will really speak to what is happening in terms of for victims and survivors in the state of South Carolina. And we'll have a lot of community providers, which Sarah
the providers will be there.
So we'll have community providers there, and so SCADVASA, as a statewide coalition, we have 22 member programs across the state that assist survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. And so some of those will be there, as well as some others, if you want to speak to
all
those.
Across the state. So we'll have, obviously, the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network will be there, but we'll have Pathways to Healing, Sister Care, folks are coming up from Charleston, Greenville, so really a statewide collaboration of people who are here to support victims and survivors and to give people information that they need so that they're not standing alone.
I love that.
So the details, the rally kicks off at 9 a.m. I know we're talking a lot about sexual assault survivors and domestic abuse survivors as well, but those who families have loved ones that have been murdered as well. We know that the Smalls family will be speaking there. Gerard Price was convicted of killing their son, and we all know about that case, something we covered heavily here on WIS. This seems like a moment for healing.
For sure.
This rally. Would you say that?
Absolutely. You know, I think the worst thing that so many victims feel like is that they're not heard, that there's no, you know, the control has been taken from them when they're victimized. And what we want to do is we want to give them some of that control back. We want to give them a voice. We want to give them that microphone so that they can tell not only our community and supporters, but also our legislators that They need to hear from victims and survivors. We need to support victims and survivors, support victim service providers. There are major cuts to funding this year, and we really need to support that. We don't need to be taking resources away. We need to really encourage them, because that's how victims, they really get that lifeline from advocates in the community.
You make such a great point, and Shannon, I'll give you the last word on that, because I was going to say that's a perfect segue, that in terms of not only changing policy and law where we identify gaps that really allow horrible circumstances to be the result of some of these cases and these families. That's a part of the healing process for them to bring about that change, but holding this at the State House and being able to connect with lawmakers and using your voice to help bring about that change, that's important as well.
Yeah, it's really, really powerful. I know I'll be speaking to legislation that SCVASA has been involved in this year in my remarks tomorrow, and so I think it's really important for that visual.
Yes,
right? Yes,
it is. It is. Well, thank you both for the important work you do in our community, especially on behalf of victims, to help them navigate that pathway to healing.
Thank you all so much.
Ladies, thank you so much. We'll make sure to have this interview posted online. Share with someone who you think would be helped from this really good information and an important event tomorrow. We'll be right back.
Local News Live, weekdays at 2 on WIS.
Get WIS 10 right in your inbox. Subscribe to our daily digest to get updates on breaking news, first alert weather, and sports. Go to WISTV.com to sign up.
Refresh your space with big style and big savings.